In the scorching heat of a September morning in 490 BCE, two armies faced each other across a narrow plain beside the Aegean Sea. On one side stood the mightiest military machine the world had ever witnessed, a force so vast that ancient chroniclers claimed it could drink rivers dry and darken the sky with arrows. On the other side, barely 10,000 Greek warriors from Athens and their Plataean allies, armed with bronze shields and iron spears, prepared to make what seemed like the ultimate last stand. This wasn't just another border skirmish or territorial dispute. This was the moment when the fate of Western civilization hung in the balance. The Persian Empire, stretching from the deserts of Egypt to the mountains of India, had set its sights on the fractured city-states of Greece. Their message was simple: submit or be destroyed. But on the fields of Marathon, something extraordinary was about to unfold, a battle so shocking in its outcome that it would echo through history for over 2,000 years. The story begins not with the clash of bronze and steel, but in the marble halls of Persepolis, where King Darius I sat upon a throne that commanded the largest empire the world had ever known. His dominion stretched across 3 continents, his armies had never known defeat, and his treasury overflowed with the tribute of 100 conquered nations. Yet this mighty king nursed a burning obsession with a collection of small, quarrelsome Greek cities that dared to defy his will. The seeds of Marathon were planted years earlier when the Greek cities of Ionia, along the coast of modern-day Turkey, rose in rebellion against Persian rule. It should have been a minor provincial uprising, easily crushed by imperial forces. But then something unprecedented happened. Athens, and 2 other cities from mainland Greece, sent ships and soldiers to aid their Ionian cousins. The revolt was eventually crushed at the Battle of Lade in 494 BCE. But Darius never forgot this insult. How dare these insignificant Greek cities interfere with Persian affairs? How dare they support rebellion against the King of Kings? Darius began planning his revenge with the methodical precision that had built his empire. In 491 BCE, he sent envoys across Greece, demanding earth and water, traditional symbols of submission. Most smaller Greek cities complied, terrified of Persian wrath, but Athens and Sparta responded with stunning defiance. They threw the Persian ambassadors into pits. It was an outrage that guaranteed war. The die was cast. The Persian war machine began to turn its attention westward. The force Darius assembled was unlike anything Europe had ever seen. Ancient sources claim numbers in the hundreds of thousands, though modern historians estimate around 20,000 to 25,000. Even at that scale, it was a massive, multinational army drawn from across the known world. Persian immortals in fish-scale armor stood alongside Median cavalry archers from the steppes and Phoenician marines who had mastered amphibious warfare. Command of the expedition fell to 2 of Darius's most trusted generals, Artapraeus, the king's own nephew, and Datis, a Median noble with a ruthless reputation. Together, they commanded not just an army, but a floating city. 600 triremes, the cutting-edge warships of the era, carried this force across the wind-dark waters of the Aegean. Their strategy was simple. First, subjugate the Cycladic islands, then punish the cities that aided the Ionian revolt, then march on Athens, crush its democracy, and install Hippias, the exiled tyrant. Island after island surrendered. When they reached Eretia, the defenders put up a brave fight. But after 6 days of siege and betrayal from within, the city fell. The Persians sacked it, enslaved its people, and burned its temples to ash. Next, they turned their sights to Athens, the perfect landing site, the plain of Marathon, wide, flat, and ideal for cavalry. It was even symbolically fitting, as Hippias's father had once landed there to seize power in Athens. But as the Persian ships anchored in Marathon Bay and soldiers disembarked, messengers were already racing to Athens. Panic gripped the city. Some citizens whispered that they should have submitted. Others spoke of fleeing to the mountains. Then came the voice of Miltiades. Miltiades was no ordinary general. Years earlier, he had fought for Darius during the Scythian campaign. He understood the Persian military better than any man in Greece, and he was resolute. Athens would not flee. Athens would fight. The decision was hotly debated among Athens' 10 generals. Some advocated defending the city walls, others proposed negotiation. But Miltiades pushed for bold action. Meet the Persians at Marathon. The deciding vote came from Callimachus the Polemarch. With his support, Athens committed to war. Within hours, Athens transformed into a hive of preparation. From every district, hoplites assembled, not professional soldiers but citizen warriors, farmers, craftsmen, merchants. Each man carried weapons passed down from ancestors, and armor stitched by wives and mothers. 9,000 Athenians stood ready, and from Plataea came 1,000 more. Meanwhile, one man raced south, Phidippides, Athens' finest runner. His task: reach Sparta, 150 miles away, and plead for aid. But the Spartans were in the midst of a sacred festival and could not march until the full moon. Help would come too late. The Athenians would stand alone save for their loyal Plataean allies. As the armies faced off across the plain, Miltiades studied the terrain. The Persians outnumbered the Greeks more than 2 to 1. Their cavalry and archers could devastate any standard infantry charge. But the terrain offered a chance. Marshes and hills flanked the plain, limiting cavalry mobility. If used wisely, the ground could become an asset. For 4 days, both armies waited. Each hoped the other would strike first. Every hour stretched nerves tighter. Hoplites checked weapons again and again. Persian commanders prepared their archers and cavalry. It was during this standoff that Miltiades devised the plan that would change history. He had observed that the Persian center guarded by elite immortals and Saka warriors was their strongest point. The flanks, made of conscripts and subject peoples, were weaker. His solution: break the rules of Greek warfare. He would deliberately thin the Greek center, reinforce the wings, and stretch the line wide to match the Persian front. When battle was joined, the Greek center would yield, drawing the Persian elite forward, while the stronger Greek wings crushed the flanks and encircled the enemy, a trap of audacious brilliance. Some generals thought him mad. Others saw a desperate genius. The opportunity came on the 5th day when Persian cavalry suddenly withdrew, perhaps to water horses, perhaps reassigned. Whatever the reason, their absence was the moment Miltiades needed. He gave the order. The Greeks charged, not marched toward the Persian line, sprinting across the deadly no man's land to close the distance before the archers could decimate them. The Persians were stunned. Never had they seen infantry charge like this. Arrows blackened the sky. Men fell, but the phalanx held. Then the clash. 10,000 Greeks slammed into the Persian line like a tidal wave of bronze and blood. On the right wing, the tribe of Agincourt smashed the Persian left. The poorly motivated conscripts broke quickly under pressure. On the left, the Plataeans fought with everything they had, knowing that defeat meant the death of their city. But in the center, the Greeks faltered. The thinned Athenian line bent under the weight of the Persian elite. The Persians surged forward, believing victory was at hand. They had walked into Miltiades' trap. As the Persian center pressed forward, the victorious Greek wings wheeled inward like closing jaws. The Persians were now surrounded, cut off from retreat, hemmed in on all sides. What followed was slaughter. Trapped and compressed, Persian troops could barely lift their weapons. Greek spears struck from all directions. 6,400 Persians lay dead by battle's end. The Greeks had lost only 192. The survivors fled to their ships. But Miltiades wasn't finished. Knowing the Persians might try a naval strike on undefended Athens, he force-marched his exhausted army 26 miles back to the city. When Persian ships rounded Cape Sunion, they saw the same hoplites waiting on the shore. They turned and sailed away. The Persian dream of conquering Greece had died, not in a great siege or naval assault, but on an open field, struck down by courage, strategy, and the will to be free. Marathon was more than a battle. It was a message to the world. Empires can fall, tyranny can be resisted, and freedom is worth fighting for. Against impossible odds, 10,000 Greeks had changed the course of history. And in doing so, they lit the torch that still burns in the heart of democracy today.